Sarawak government wants to preserve peace and harmony, and that's the first news on this Wednesday's Prime News. Hi everyone, I'm Nadia Nazir from tvsarawak.com. Dato' Amar Abang Johari Tun Openg has reiterated the point raised by Chief Minister Tan Sri Dato' Amar Adnan Satem pertaining to religious bigots and racial extremists from entering Sarawak. According to Dato' Amar Abang Johari, Chief Minister wants everyone to know that state government would take whatever measures necessary to prevent these people from entering Sarawak. Among those forbidden to enter Sarawak are politicians who might cause political stirs like in Peninsular Malaysia. He also urged NGOs in the state to help promote and sustain the harmonious atmosphere which has already been established by their forefathers. The government in return will give necessary grant to support their activities. He was speaking at the presentation of government grants amounting to 175,000 ringgit to 9 voluntary organisations and bodies at Wisma Sultan Tengah in Petrajaya. The recipients yesterday were Pertubuhan Penginjilan Pentecost Sarawak, also known as SPES, Friends of Sarawak Museum, Kuching Division Journalists Association KDJA, and Sarawak Backbenchers Club, JKKKs of Kampung Temedak Muhibah, Kelab Kebajikan dan Sukan Jais, Sarawak Sikh Temple Association, Invention and Design Association of Sarawak, and Persatuan Ulama Malaysia, Cawangan Sarawak. Dato' Amar Abang Johari Tun Openg said that the claim by some people that Sarawak actually has never been independent is a very shallow argument. He said that Sarawak got its independence on July 22, 1963 and later formed Malaysia together with the Malay Union. On suggestions that Sarawak could only consider itself independent if it solely stands on its own, Abang Johari said that too was also nonsensical since the state has its own government, own authority and autonomy. He further said that such arguments were perpetrated by certain groups for their own glory and benefits. Abang Johari also welcomed the suggestions by Communication and Multimedia Ministry to remove the anniversary year from the Independence Day celebration. Local Government and Community Development Minister Datuk Sri Wong Soon Koh has accepted Chief Minister's call to temporarily freeze the appointment of Chinese community leaders. He hopes this would put an end to rows between him and SUPP. He stressed that he has always appointed capable and respected leaders for the benefit of the Chinese community and that he has never abused his power. He added that all appointments had gone through proper screenings by the relevant authorities and the recommendations of assemblymen in the respective constituencies. Micro hydropower is the better alternative to electricity. Jilau MP Datuk Joseph Salang said that hydropower is a better alternative to provide cheap electricity to remote longhouses. Besides, micro hydro dam also helps conserve the forest upstream. He said the One Malaysia Advisory Council had so far funded the construction of 2 more hydropower dams in his constituency, which were already in full operation. The 2 dams are located at Rumah Michael Jantan, Naga Bekatan, and at Rumah Jawang Bukit Sri. Salang, who is One Malaysia Sarawak Advisory Council Chairman, said both dams were built through gotong royong by the villagers themselves under the supervision of Public Works Department. The 10-kilowatt micro hydro dam at Rumah Michael is said to be benefiting about 200 residents. He also highlighted that micro hydropower has great potential in Sarawak since the state has many rivers and streams in rugged terrains. Micro hydropower is capable of producing electricity from 1 kilowatt to about 200 kilowatt. Moving to the regional news. The preliminary report on the MH17 disaster appears to add weight to claims that the Boeing 777 was hit by shrapnel from a missile when it crashed on July 17th while flying over eastern Ukraine. The report released by the Dutch Safety Board yesterday said the aircraft blew up in mid-air while flying from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur after being hit by high-energy objects, killing all 298 passengers and crew on board. The 34-page report also cleared the crew and the aircraft of any competency or technical problems that may have contributed to the crash. It said the Boeing 777-200 had broken up after being hit or being penetrated by a large number of high-energy objects from outside of the aircraft. The report said images taken from the crash site showed pieces of wreckage containing multiple holes and indentations, which were also present on the sections of the cockpit. A further investigation would be needed before a final report was issued, which is expected within a year after the crash. The Ministry of Women, Family and Community Development has produced 1,645 women entrepreneurs throughout the country between January 2013 and June this year. Its Deputy Minister, Dato' Azizah Mohamad Dun, said the Women Entrepreneurs Program conducted with Amanah Ikhtiar Malaysia AIM had also produced 4,300 businesswomen from 2009 and 2012. She said that the opportunities provided by the government were catalysts to the efforts to increase the incomes earned by women through entrepreneurship so that they can have a more secure future. And this is good news for Malaysians who can't afford to buy a house. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Najib Tun Razak said that those who cannot secure bank loans for the One Malaysia People's Housing Scheme, also known as PRIMA, can own the units they are staying in by paying rental for up to 30 years under a government plan. Prime Minister said the Rent-to-Own RTO scheme was designed to allow potential buyers who could not afford these units or had been turned away by the banks due to various factors to own PRIMA units. Both the government and PRIMA has to intervene as there were cases of genuine buyers who could not come up with proper documents to support their applications. As of last year, PRIMA, which has over 700,000 interested buyers on its national registration system, has already approved the construction of 80,494 affordable units. Another latest on the international front. President Barack Obama has briefed congressional leaders on his plans for an expanded military campaign against Islamic State militants in Iraq and Syria. He discussed his strategy with leaders from both parties at the White House. The talks came ahead of a speech on Wednesday night in which he will make a case directly to the American people. The White House described the meetings as productive and said Mr. Obama had the authority to act against IS. Tuesday's meeting with congressional leaders came a year after lawmakers blocked Mr. Obama's previous plans for missile attacks against Syria. Since then, the IS jihadist group has taken control of large swaths of Iraq and Syria. In June, it declared the creation of a caliphate or Islamic State. In the past month, IS militants have beheaded 2 US journalists in protest against American airstrikes on its forces in Iraq. Mr. Obama has ruled out the possibility of a US ground operation against IS, but has signaled he may expand airstrikes to include Syria. China has begun deploying 700 soldiers to a UN peacekeeping force in South Sudan to protect oil fields and Chinese workers amid a rebellion in the African country, the Wall Street Journal reported. The newspaper quoted a spokesman for South Sudan's president as saying on Tuesday that the airlift of a Chinese infantry battalion to the South Sudanese states of Unity and Upper Nile was expected to take several days. China is the biggest investor in South Sudan's oil industry. UN officials have previously said it would be the first time China had contributed a battalion to a UN peacekeeping mission. Last year, China sent a smaller protection unit to join a UN mission in Mali. Beijing last month pressed South Sudan over renewed violence in the oil-rich state, demanding an immediate ceasefire and political dialogue in the country. Under its mandate, UN peacekeepers are allowed to use all necessary means to protect civilians at oil installations, the Wall Street Journal said. If attacked, the Chinese soldiers are combat ready and can fight back, the South Sudan presidential spokesman Ateni Weg Ateni said. Chinese officials have been in regular contact with Western diplomats to help African mediators push for a halt to the fighting in South Sudan. China has pushed rival factions loyal to President Salva Kiir and rebel leader Riek Machar to talk. Around 5% of China's oil imports come from South Sudan when it was pumping at full tilt. The state firm China National Petroleum Corp has a 40% stake in a joint venture developing the country's oil fields. Japan's nuclear regulator gave final safety approval to restart 2 reactors at Kyushu Electric Power Co. Inc.'s Sendai plant on Wednesday, the regulator's first major ruling since it was formed in the aftermath of the 2011 Fukushima disaster. All 48 of Japan's nuclear reactors have been gradually idled since a massive earthquake and tsunami set off a devastating nuclear disaster at Fukushima and sparked public opposition to atomic power. The government of Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has been pressing to restart reactors that received safety approval from the Nuclear Regulation Authority to reduce Japan's reliance on expensive imported fuel. Japan is also moving to shut down the nation's oldest reactors that are 40 years old or more. Switching to the sports news, the organizer of the second edition of the Shimano Highway Challenge 2014 in November expects to attract 2,000 cyclists of all ages. High Velocity Event Sendirian Berhad Director C.G. Lim said the 78-kilometer event at the Kajang Seremban, also known as Lekas Highway, had to date drawn some 600 participants since registration opened on September 2nd. Last year, 1,352 cyclists took part in the Highway Challenge. The event starts at the Kajang South Toll Plaza and stretches all the way to beyond the Ampangan Toll Plaza and back. The entire stretch will be closed off to traffic during the event. 30,000 free tickets will be distributed to students in schools throughout Selangor to enable them to watch the annual Sultan of Selangor Cup match between Selangor and Singapore on September 27th at the Shah Alam Stadium. The chairman of the organizing committee and Selangor team manager Dato' Abdul Karim Munisa said the tickets were being given out to encourage the young to witness the match and get to know the players of old and new of the two teams, which were bitter rivals in their heyday. Fans can purchase tickets at 10 ringgit each at Restaurant Uncle K at Paradigm Mall, SACC Mall in Shah Alam, and Taman Tun Dr. Ismail Kuala Lumpur, Hotel Concord Shah Alam, and the stadium itself on match day. The match begins at 8 p.m. with kick-off proper at 9 p.m. Former F1 champion Michael Schumacher has left a Swiss hospital to continue his recovery at home, his manager says. Sabine Kemm said in a statement that he had made progress, but there was a long and difficult road ahead. Schumacher suffered a head injury in a skiing accident in France in December last year and was transferred to the Swiss hospital in June. Schumacher's family said in June that he had come out of the medically induced coma to reduce swelling in his brain. Schumacher spent 6 months at a hospital in France after this accident before being transferred to the hospital in Lausanne. His family home is in Gland, which is on the shores of Lake Geneva, some 40 kilometers away from Lausanne. Spain began the long road to defending their European title with a 5-1 win over Macedonia in their first Euro 2016 qualifying game. This was their first competitive match since a disastrous World Cup campaign which included a 5-1 humiliation against Netherlands. Spain raced to the lead after 15 minutes when David Silva was brought down in the box allowing Sergio Ramos to convert the penalty. Just 2 minutes later, Paco Alcácer scored his first goal for Spain by converting Juanfran's cross. Macedonia managed to pull a goal back when Juanfran fouled Alexander Trajowski in the box, leaving Ajim Ibrahimi to score from the spot. But Spain returned to their 2-goal lead in stoppage time via Sergio Busquets' efforts on goal was deflected into the net. Silva put the result beyond doubt just 5 minutes after the break with a drilled shot from the left side of the box. Spain took the pace down a notch but still came close via Cesc Fabregas, whose shot was denied by the crossbar. It was Pedro who scored the final goal of the game, chipping the keeper after a swift counter-attack in the 90th minute.
Qué bien, Paco, ese movimiento.
Otro gran desmarque de Alcácer. Ha marcado Sergio Ramos de penalti, con ese penalti que hemos visto ahí, con ese lanzamiento con el que ha batido al portero. Un disparo con toda la sangre fría del mundo. Balón para Juanfran. Intenta tocar Juanfran. Va a marcar España el segundo gol. Gol de España, el segundo tanto. Acaba de marcar Alcácer el segundo gol.
An Austrian footballer has been banned 70 matches for headbutting a referee. Ismail Gunduz of amateur side SK Rum received the punishment after he reacted furiously to being shown a second yellow card in the 87th minute of a match against SPG Innsbruck West. The suspension was imposed by the Tyrol Football Association, which governs the Tyrol Liga, the fourth division of Austrian football. The club was also fined €257. Gunduz defended himself, claiming that he slipped. And now to the special report. Apple has unveiled a smartwatch, the Apple Watch, its first new product line since the first iPad and the death of its co-owner, Steve Jobs. The device runs apps, acts as a health and fitness tracker, and communicates with the iPhone. While rival smartwatches already exist, experts said Apple had a history of entering sectors relatively late and then changing their direction. Apple also unveiled 2 new handsets that are larger than previous models. The iPhone 6's screen measures 4.7 inches and the iPhone 6 Plus is 5.5 inches, a change that analysts said should help prevent users migrating to Android. It also announced a new service called Apple Pay, which Chief Executive Tim Cook said he hoped would replace the wallet in shops.
These are the new iPhones, the iPhone 6 and the iPhone 6 Plus. They are without a doubt the best iPhones we've ever done.
A surge in atmospheric carbon dioxide saw levels of greenhouse gases reach record levels in 2013, according to new figures. Concentrations of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere between 2012 and 2013 grew at their fastest rate since 1984. The World Meteorological Organization, also known as WMO, says that it highlights the need for a global climate treaty. The WMO's annual Greenhouse Gas Bulletin doesn't measure emissions from power station smokestacks, but instead records how much of the warming gases remain in the atmosphere after the complex interactions that take place between the air, the land, and the oceans. About half of all emissions are taken up by the seas, trees, and living things. According to the bulletin, the globally averaged amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere reached 396 parts per million ppm in 2013, an increase of almost 3 ppm over the previous year. Atmospheric carbon dioxide is now at 142% of the levels in 1750, before the start of the Industrial Revolution. The bulletin suggests that in 2013, the increase in carbon dioxide was due not only to increased emissions, but also a reduced carbon uptake by the Earth's biosphere. However, global average temperatures have not risen in concert with the sustained growth in carbon dioxide, leading to many voices claiming that global warming has paused. For the first time, the bulletin includes data on the acidification of the seas caused by carbon dioxide. Every day, according to the WMO, the oceans take up about 4 kgs of carbon dioxide per person. They believed the current rate of acidification is unprecedented over the last 300 million years. The evidence of the atmosphere and oceans underlines the need for urgent, concentrated political action to tackle the problem. The world's political leaders will gather in New York on 23rd September for a special summit called by the UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon. The hope is that this meeting will kickstart long-standing negotiations that aim to deliver a new international climate change by the end of 2015. That was TV Sarawak Prime News. We will be back with more news tomorrow. In the meantime, I'm Nadia Nazir, leaving you with a video for better understanding of the greenhouse effect.